Welcome to the discussion on migration and human rights. Today, we hear from someone whose personal journey reflects the stories of millions of migrants, stories of hope, resilience, and the challenges of navigating new realities. Drawing from her own experience, our guest explores what it means to leave home and face the barriers that come with migration. Her reflections remind us that migration is more than a policy issue, it's a deeply human story that demands dignity and rights for all. Today, we are covering Najiba's story, born in Kabul, Afghanistan, and now studying and living in Germany. She began to be a women's rights advocacy officer in 2009 while still living in Kabul. Before leaving Afghanistan, she spent 5 years with UNICEF Afghanistan as a child protection and social behavior change officer. Here are the questions we asked Najiba. Let's begin. Najiba, what challenges do undocumented families face in accessing healthcare, education, and housing, and how does this affect their mental health?
Thank you for inviting me for the topic, which is very, very important, and at the same time, it is getting serious and worried day by day globally. So undocumented migrants are the most vulnerable groups among the migrants, and this is one of the obvious things that the services at any field differs from the documented migrants or asylum seekers, etc. So the challenge is that mainly the undocumented families are facing globally, mainly when we are focusing in the US and also in the EU countries, European countries, which are it is in terms of the healthcare, it's only an emergency healthcare which is provided for them, and mostly even the undocumented families and the children are also not receiving these healthcares. So the emergency healthcares are mostly provided in the European countries free of charge for all the residents, regardless of my immigration status. But this is very important to know that the limited access to primary care is there when they want to have access to primary care, so they are rejected, or they are asked for a fees for that. Discrimination are there in terms of the providing the emergency or primary care for the undocumented families and especially the elders. So the undocumented individuals may face discrimination from healthcare providers, leading to delays and treatment and lower quality of care. The language barrier, most of the language barrier is one of the important things that we cannot ignore while for these undocumented families are seeking for the healthcare. So because they are not provided with some of the education and the language courses, because they are at the first level of and the risk of deportation, so governments are not much investing on them, you know. In terms of the education, many European countries guarantee the right of education for all children, regardless of migration status. However, the access to higher education may be more limited. Discrimination is also felt for the undocumented students, and of course, bullying from the students, from the environment, from the teachers can be felt. The language barrier is again there because the children cannot practice it freely within their families because the family members are vulnerable to support them. One of the other issues which is very important, and that's housing. So undocumented families may face discrimination from landlords and housing agencies, and it makes difficult to find affordable and safe housing for them. But substandard housing are there that due to limited options and fear of deportation, undocumented families may be forced to live in overcrowded and substandard housing. These all situations are directly or indirectly impacting the mental health of these families. But one is about the journey that they make, about their residents that they faced a lot of problems and they made the journey to come and migrate. This process is also not easy for them to adjust and to forget that. But again, when they are migrating to one of the EU countries or maybe to the US, etc., they already come with a lot of mental health problems, stress, and depressions. But here again, the situation makes it double and it increases that. But unfortunately, the mental health services are very limited to them because mental health services are already very limited for all the residents and undocumented people who are facing mental health issues. They are of course most vulnerable to have access on that. Stigma is there. Stigma is associated with the mental illnesses and immigration status, and this can discourage people to seek help. When they want to ask for mental health, there are some NGOs and some of the welfare organizations who want to provide the mental health support for them. But again, they will face a lot of challenges, a lot of barriers in terms of the limited services and also in terms of the language barriers, etc. But we can see that the universal healthcare, there are some differences from the US because some of the EU countries have universal healthcare systems that provide coverage to all residents, including undocumented migrants. And they are also having strong social safety nets. It means that in the European countries, often stronger social safety nets, including unemployment benefit, housing assistance, and food aid, which can provide some supports to undocumented families, are there existing. And the greater legal protection, which is also important to flag that it's in a better situation in European countries, and some of the European countries offer more legal protection to undocumented migrants, such as the right to work and access to certain public services. The current situations are like that for undocumented migrants.
How do undocumented parents raise their children while dealing with legal issues, and what impact does this have on their family's well-being?
Thank you for your question. Undocumented parents often live in constant fear of deportation, which creates a climate of anxiety and instability for their families. The legal document is one of the important things that enables the migrants to seek for more services, to ask for more services, and to benefit from the different services. But when they are undocumented, there are a lot of discriminations and there are a lot of challenges for accessing these very basic very basic services. And without legal services, undocumented family may be denied access to essential services like healthcare, education, and social assistance. This lead to significant health disparities and educational disadvantages for the children. And also, I want to highlight that the difficulty accessing employment, it's one of the important things that the undocumented parents may be forced to work in the informal economy, often in low-paying and low-paying jobs, and this can make it difficult to provide for their families and save for their children's future. But this directly impact on the children's well-being, because the children cannot be separated from their families and from the behaviors and stresses of their parents, you know. Therefore, so it impacts on their mental health, and it's constant stress and uncertainty experienced by the undocumented families can have a negative impact on the children's mental health, and it leads to anxiety, depression, and behavioral problems within the families. The educational disadvantages will be felt in the family members, and limited access to education and language barriers can hinder the children's academic process and the future opportunities. The social isolation, fear of deportation can lead to social isolation, and undocumented families may be reluctant to participate in the community activities, to seek help from the social services. And this intergenerational trauma will be experienced by the undocumented parents that can be passed down to their children, affecting their emotional and psychological development.
What legal protections exist for undocumented families in Europe or Africa, and how effective are they in practice?
Some of the legal protections are there in Europe and Africa, but we cannot guarantee about its impact. For example, in terms of the legal documents, as I previously also mentioned about it, that undocumented migrants receive a status of undocumented, and they will be at least for a period of time safe from deportation until the situation in their countries gets better. The emergency health care is one of the I can see one of the positive things that exist in Europe for the undocumented migrants, and the quality is also seemingly better and equal to the all other residents, which is one of the other good points, and the education for the children. But yes, we cannot ignore that some of the other policies and laws are only remained in the paper, and because the thinking, the attitude is that when they put in place more policies and strategies to support the undocumented migrants, it will cause more undocumented migrants to travel and to migrate to their countries. And this is one of the points also to note, that most of the countries who are putting in place and who are creating positive acts or positive policies for the undocumented migrants, or in general for the migrants, that will not be much welcomed by the other countries, because there is the welcoming policy, or the welcoming doors are getting limited day by day. But when we are seeing that one country initiates some of the policies, and they create some of the law to limit access, bringing more migrants or coming of more migrants. They limit that, then that will be highly appreciated by the other countries, and they will take these steps to implement that. For example, we are seeing the President Trump's administration, who are now announcing the emergency, national emergency status for the whole United States, and they are also getting support from the military to deport back the illegal migrants or the undocumented migrants, and that is a tragic that definitely will be followed by the European countries and all the other countries who are apparently accepting the migrants. So this is one of the fears for all the people. And one of the other main points is that they are limiting the ways of the people to come to Europe or the other countries, and that will put more people in danger to seek and to experience the very dangerous and illegal ways. And of course, since the people are coming from the conflict areas, from the natural disaster areas or poverties, of course they will be undocumented. Majority of them will be undocumented, and that is not a good sign for all these. And I'm afraid that the current strategies that are there and being implemented by some of the countries who are always talking about human rights and equalities and welcoming migrants, that will be day by day limited, and it will be ignored to implement.
What policy changes are needed to better protect undocumented migrants and their families?
Thank you for your questions. I think that the strategies that can help the undocumented parents or the families is most of them can be at the grassroots level by some of the so I can say generally that it can be in two parts. One is about the policies and strategies that can be again created by the upper level, by the policy makers, and the other is also about the grassroots initiatives that can be more beneficial for these groups. So what can be at the policy level, which can benefit the undocumented migrants or in general, is regularization pathways, humanitarian regularization. When it is implemented, then it will be more flexible and accessible humanitarian regularization programs to allow undocumented individuals to gain legal status based on humanitarian grounds such as family ties and health conditions or long-term residence. The other positive step can be labor market integration, that it creates the pathways to legal status for undocumented migrants who have been working in the formal economy for a certain period, and they contribute to the host country's economy. Access to essential service is, again, I pressure on them that healthcare that the countries have to make sure the equal access to healthcare services for all, regardless of the immigration status, and that can be included to emergency care, primary care, and mental health services, and of course, education, that the guaranteed right to education for all the children, including undocumented children, from primary school to higher education. The social services that, as I mentioned before, provide access to social services such as housing assistance, children welfare, and social security benefits to the undocumented families in need. One of the main things, which is of course at the policy level and also at the ground level in the communities, is the combating discrimination and xenophobia. Anti-discrimination laws are definitely required to strengthen anti-discrimination laws to protect undocumented migrants from discrimination in housing, employment, access to public services. The public awareness campaigns are important to launch public awareness campaigns to challenge negative stereotypes and promote social inclusion and undocumented migrants. The next suggestion can be protecting rights and combating exploitation in the labor rights, and also access to justice. To ensure access to legal and justice for undocumented migrants is important to include the right to fair trial and protection from the arbitrary detentions. I can also add the international cooperation, safe and legal migration pathways, to work with the countries of origin and transit to create safe and legal migration pathways to reduce resilience and dangerous irregular migration. For me, I can also mention some additional considerations, for example, to focus more on the children's rights, gender equality, and also the data protection. That is one of the key issues that refers to the undocumented migrations, to respect the privacy and data protection right of the undocumented migrants. And by implementing these policy changes, the European countries can create more human and justice environment for undocumented migrants and their families, and they can promote social integration and contributing to more inclusive society.
Najiba, do you have any final statement?
My final statement as an Afghan girl who is forcibly migrated and experienced different political instabilities, and also beliefs and to the principle of human rights and humanity. I hold a strong belief that a time will come when human rights are upheld for their intrinsic values rather than being manipulated as political instruments. We are seeing a lot of discriminations from the global politics and the actors who are just using and manipulating the human rights principles. And they are not valuing as it is, and for the purpose the principles are created. So I hope peace in the world, and I hope that no one will be forced to migrate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Najiba. So this was AIHLI sharing the story of Najiba, just one among countless migrants whose journeys remind us of the strength and humanity behind every migration experience. By highlighting these stories, we aim to shift perspectives, foster understanding, and advocate for a world where the rights and dignity of all are upheld. Thank you for joining us.
Undocumented families may face discrimination from landlords and housing agencies, and it makes it difficult to find affordable and safe housing for them. But substandard housing are there that due to limited options and fear of deportation, undocumented families may be forced to live in overcrowded and substandard housing. Undocumented parents often live in constant fear of deportation, which creates a climate of anxiety and instability for their families. The legal document is one of the important things that enables the migrants to seek for more services, to ask for more services, and to benefit from the different services. But when they are undocumented, there are a lot of discriminations and there are a lot of challenges for accessing these very basic services. And without legal services, undocumented family may be denied access to essential services like healthcare, education, and social assistance. This lead to significant health disparities and educational disadvantages for the children. The social isolation, fear of deportation can lead to social isolation, and undocumented families may be reluctant to participate in the community activities to seek help from the social services. And this intergenerational trauma will be experienced by the undocumented parents that can be passed down to their children, affecting their emotional and psychological development. Limiting the ways of the people to come to Europe or the other countries, and that will put more people in danger to seek and to experience the very dangerous and illegal ways. And of course, since the people are coming from the conflict areas, from the natural disaster areas or poverties, of course they will be undocumented. Majority of them will be undocumented, and that is not a good sign for all these. And I afraid that the current strategies that are there and being implemented by some of the countries who are always talking about human rights and equalities and welcoming migrants, that will be day by day limited and it will be ignored to implement. So what can be at the policy level which can benefit the undocumented migrants or in general is regularization pathways, humanitarian regularization. When it is implemented, then it will be more flexible and accessible humanitarian regularization programs to allow undocumented individuals to gain legal status based on humanitarian grounds such as family ties and health conditions or long-term residence.